So we are finally starting to get some springtime coming through here, finally getting some melt off. See a little bit of lawn. And with the warmer weather, going to get into another project. I have had a couple of ATVs sitting on a trailer all winter, waiting for the right opportunity to uncover them, start going through them, and see if we can get them on the trail as well. So today's the day to get that uncovered, start cracking into that. And Josh is going to come over for a bit, so we're going to crack into them together, kind of have some fun. And while I'm waiting for him, it's going to get set up and cleaned up a little bit over here. Ta-da! Twins. Two 1986 Polaris Trail Boss 250s. Two strokes. This is the first US production line ATV that was manufactured. This is going to be interesting because this, from what I can see so far, doesn't look like some of the other ATVs that I've worked on. The brakes, for example, they're not back there on the axle, they're up towards the motor. So a lot of interesting things I'm not used to seeing. So this is going to be a learning experience, to say the least.
Look at all the room in the front of that.
There's a lot of space. So what's it missing?
Seat's in good shape.
Whoa.
It's not cracked.
All the hardware's there. That's great.
A little bit of crack, but not
I
bad.
won't notice that. Probably a cover. Airbox is missing. Carburetor is here. It looks hecka gunked. We can work on that. Cables are seized up. We have key, we have choke, we have light. Looks like a high-low. I think I see a third option here for reverse, so perhaps 3-speed. Obviously flywheel cover's missing. There would have been a starter down in here. That's missing. I don't see frame cracks. Rubber bushings look to be intact down in here. We have a petcock, missing bolts here and there. Overall, though, these plastics look to be complete. A little bit of paint cables, hand grips, pretty beat up. There's going to need a lot of rebuilding up here. This guy's a little cracked, but again, we do have twins. We have 2 of them, so we can combine if needed. And looking, sometimes the serial number is up on a plate under here. In this case, it isn't. There's a serial number down here on the side, I believe, and I'll have to double check, but that last digit indicates this is an 86. Solid plastics, a lot of discoloration, missing plaque, a couple of missing bolts on this side. Obviously we have a hole here. We'll have to address some of that once we get and see what this belt looks like.
Last on the trail in 2010.
2010 sticker, yeah, look at that. So it's been running. We'll pull this battery, give the battery an inspection. I can't tell the fluid levels from here. That might be a little low. But all right. And I think I noticed the hardware. Yep. Ugh. If I get my hand down in here. Yeah, hardware and tools. Allen wrenches. For attaching the rack. So, and interesting, these tires look like they're holding air. First glance, I don't see dry rot. Well, the front's got some dry rot, but yeah. Okay. Maybe they're not holding air. Well, I think first things first, let's get the racks off. Let's start lifting the plastics off so we can see what's under there. We'll get the battery off so we can take a look at that. The carb is all kinds of messy in there. So we'll get that off. We'll get that into the ultrasonic, find out how it's set. And then we're gonna see about determining if the motor is stuck, if we have spark, all of those things. So here we go. I do have to already say though, as starting to get into this, who in their right mind does all of these as flatheads? That I haven't seen before. I'm assuming somebody's probably worked on it because all of this, while nicely done, oh boy, there's just flatheads all over everything. These Phillips might be OEM, I don't know. Yeah, probably, because I bet this all looks OEM. What'd you find? Is that SAE or is that a metric?
Yeah. SAE.
All right, so we've got well, it's American production, so it may all be SAE versus metric that we're used to. And I do suspect this was all done after the fact. Someone did the work because these are
7/16.
Yeah, this is all far too nice for that to be from the 80s. So as we're cracking in here, we're working on getting the racks off and the plastics off first so we can get underneath and really get the carburetor out, start get some access to the motor. One thing is these fairings are actually bolted to the footwells. So there's two 10 mils on the back here, also up front. So these aren't flapping around, those are pretty beefy. And this is some beefy plastic that is held up here. I don't know yet if this is OEM. I'll have to look, or if somebody cut this in afterwards, but it's pretty rugged.
They cut it in afterwards. They did a nice job because that's pretty
it looks good.
It's pretty symmetrical.
So rear rack's about to come off, front rack is off. Ultimately they get the tank off. We had a bar here that the airbox will lock into, so we've already found some corrosion on some of these grounding clips here. So those two screws come out. We've got to do the footwell screws, both sides. Rest of the rack. Then we may be ready to lift this off. I bet this is a garage special of whatever bolts were lying around are the bolts that are on it.
So you need a small plug?
How about the open face one up there? And what I might be about to find out is that one's metric. Yeah, is that the 12?
nothing up front, right? No catch on anything up front?
Gets a lift. There we go.
There we go.
Alright, what do you think?
That's really nice
That'll
plastic.
clean up nice.
Yeah.
Look at that. it's the bungee battery.
That's good ingenuity right there. Might be a little hard to see, but you got some bulge.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right there, and you can, that's the outline of the lead acid plate. And there's the other one. So,
Yeah. And we got some good nicks
Yeah.
there. That I don't know how much is left before this battery leaks. All right, I think this tank, I wasn't able to get this tank to lift off while the rear plastics were on. It was catching, but I think this is going to come
still connected
connected to the carb, right?
at the petcock.
Ooh, yeah, bottom.
There it is.
Boom.
There it is. So you're hitting on the frame, right?
Yeah.
Oil too.
I wonder if the method to the madness is going to be to lift the bars. Oh no. Yeah. So learning as we're going, still trying to get the tank off, but even with the rear plastics off and the carb and fuel injection, fuel line and oil injection lines disconnected, can't get over the injection line off the frame. So I think the method for this guy is going to be to lift the bars off so we can lift everything straight up. And looking at this, I think we're just going to go, I'm going to go grab a hand impact for these guys. If they don't play nice, that ought to break them right out.
A little rounded already.
So, does that make it able to? Oops. Boom, here we go. It's either gas or water in here.
I'm gonna, at this point,
Turpentine. Oh, check it out. Squirrel nest.
ooh.
He saved all his...
Oh,
Oh, this is an interesting design on account of that would just hold water. Oh, you know what that is? That's the air intake up into the frame, back into the air box.
it looks like it's got some, that looks like an electrical junction box.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
got
bolted
wire.
on the bottom. I'm gonna bet that is the ECU. That's probably, yeah, probably the CDI effectively. So we're getting close here. Found something to point out. It looks factory. The front plastics are riveted to the frame. You see these rivets here go with this, I'm not even sure what to call this, decorative plastic, all piece of it, but this is actually attached to, attached to the frame. Up, it is attached to the frame up underneath here. See if I can turn the camera and get a shot of it. You know, up in here. Up in there, riveted right in. So we're gonna drill the rivets to take off front plastics. But that's a new one. First time I've seen what I believe is from the factory, a factory rivet. Do I need to take those plastics off, or do I just want to so I can see everything? I want to, which makes me, I need to. I gotta see, because I also want to get these plastics cleaned up, and it's gonna be a whole lot easier to clean these, buff, polish, get this little bit of paint. This looks to be some paint. Oh, I think there's some paint on there to get off. So we're just gonna hit these with a drill, 1, 2, and I think we'll leave this piece on for now.
This is still connected to the...
Oh, is this piece also riveted to the frame?
that might be plastic.
Plastic, that'll come. If we drill those two, I think we're good to go.
Just plastic.
All right. There we go. So, let's put the steering back on. Yep. All right, so we put the handlebars back on here. Not really tight, it just keeps everything kind of up and out of the way as we keep working through. Eventually, when we get to the point of running, I like to get things running without all the plastics on, work the kinks out. So now we're coming around to the carburetor, and we've taken the boot clamp off. But what's of interest to me here is this boot, really a soft flexing boot. And I want to be careful here because I don't want to tear this, because an air leak here, 2 strokes could rev to the moon, really lean things out, cause some damage. So not sure how we're going to get this carburetor off yet. We're going to try and do it without damaging the boot.
Looks like you got some pry points right here.
Yeah.
Maybe put a flat
Maybe the,
head right
the
there.
big wide flat head. See if we tear it, we tear it, but with any luck.
Be gentle.
Boy, I mean, option B is we try and go in with the Allens and take the whole boot off the motor block. Oh, might be thinking about it.
Just gonna work my way around. And there we go.
Okay. We'll spin the top off, slip the throttle cable off, and then this can go on the bench.
Just gonna.
That looks to be I think that's OEM. That looks like an OEM. Nice big carb too. That's going to be great compared to finding a knockoff in here.
The needle needs a little bit of cleaning up, but
Yep, that needle's definitely got
and then we got another.
a lot of corrosion.
What's that?
Choke.
Oh, choke.
Yep.
Just unscrew that too.
Yep.
Or you want to screw it here or here?
That's for adjusting, taking up slack. So right at the base is where we're going to take that guy out. Kind of getting really interested to see what the inside of that carb looks like. That could be something special. Yeah, there's no drain hose.
No.
Just that cap. Yeah, let's see if we can get this to open up, at least see what this looks like inside.
Still says Japan.
Yeah. Maybe just a rebuild kit for this guy. See if those play nice. Wow.
That's
Well, that wasn't gonna... You're not supposed to eat it.
It tasted so good.
Wow. Let's just pour this stuff out. Look at that.
That's dried up turpentine.
Okay, so...
Your needle, that thing's...
Alright, so, yeah. A little compressed air, it'll be fine.
Just spray it with some brake clean, you'll be good.
Alright, so, what we'll end up doing, I'm probably going to run this through the ultrasonic as it is, and...
Those floats still float up and down? Do they?
These floats, are they supposed to... I don't know this car. Oh, I bet you into these dimples.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're... But they should, I'm assuming. There we go.
Yeah.
Different kind of carburetor. Alright, well, we'll set this off to the side. This is going to get a special treatment. That's going through the ultrasonic
I'm going to put this...
lots. But before I do a full disassembly, I'm going to want to see where the screw settings are. So the air mixture screw.
Yep.
And record those. Starting to bring out notebooks for a lot of this stuff, because otherwise it lives in my head.
Oh.
But that'll be a rebuild for sure. Okay, so recognizing that, I'd like to get the belt cover off, see what that looks like underneath, and ultimately that spark plug and get a look down in the head. And we got...
That's a new spark plug, though.
It's a new spark plug. Might have tried to get it running, but I can't imagine it was going to run with a new spark plug with that carburetor. And, you know, that battery, you know, that Parts Plus battery, someone put that in. It did look like it was grounded out appropriately. But I'm glad we started getting into it before we fired it up, because depending on the condition of that cylinder, we could have cranked it over and scored the cylinder real quick, and then we'd lose some ground. That plug...
Just recap that.
Yeah, it smells a little...
Got some fuel on it, but
a little bit of fuel on there, but that looks brand new. All right, what does it look like?
New belt.
That's probably case. So, judging by all this, where it was rubbing, I wonder if this is going to need a rebuild. It's possible that this is wobbling, and that's what carved into it, because these holes on the inside here, not the belt side. What about this?
That's it. Oh, right there. Look at that. That's...
So there's what was rubbing.
That one looks alright. And that one looks like it should be... maybe.
Belt's got teeth.
There's some rust.
Oh, look, yeah, it's a Parts Unlimited belt. And there's a Yep, it'll need some love, but I end up getting a tool to pull this, but we don't need to pull all this to see if it's going to fire. So let's inspect the head. Now, is that piston moving? Let's grab a pencil or something we can stick down in there. See if that piston's going up and down. Because we don't have the spark plug in, so there's no resistance, but
maybe that's all it is. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This motor is not locked.
Nope.
All right.
You can spin it if you want.
I don't want to catch that. Okay. Alrighty. Encouraging. Okay. Let's take stock of where we are here. So while Josh is taking apart the carb and getting all the loose crud off of that, I am going to get the ultrasonic warmed up and going here, fill it with water, and then I use a little bit of this mix down here. Add a couple of capfuls of this, and we'll start getting that carb cleaned up so we can get a better idea of what we can salvage out of it.
I got your little pick of them. Pick and good. You want to figure out what how many turns?
One and an eighth. One and an eighth. Air fuel mixture screw. Emulsifier tube, and obviously under here our float. That's going to be a big deal. If we can get this guy to punch through, he might be in there pretty bad, but
I'll see.
There's usually just a little lip that holds it. There we go.
And then, look at that.
Okay. All that. And this guy. So this guy should just fall right out, really. Our float needle.
There it is. O-ring on there?
No O-ring, unless there's an O-ring down in there. Needle looks good. Okay. Into the bath. All right, so while the carb is in the ultrasonic, we're playing with the controls here to get an idea of what's functional. Not a lot of play in the front brake, but if I activate it, both sides compress the drums. Just a little movement there, but the cable isn't seized. The throttle, working the thumb throttle, also retracts fine. So the rear brake is completely bound up. That one is not doing anything, but I don't know if it's the cable or back here around this this caliper. So we're going to take the shield off. We're going to look to get the caliper off, because at the very least this this rotor is going to be something special. But also when we get ready to go and ride, right here, the selector, high-low reverse, it's not moving. So if we can't get this free, we'll have to take it off the motor and take this so we can get some PB blaster in there, put some heat to it. I'm also, oh nope, I thought I had noticed a broken off screw here, but no, this is a pin for lining up. And you notice I was getting excited about thinking to crank it and start, but there's no starter on this one, so I have a piece there. So we'll take that rear caliper off. We won't need that to try and start and go. We will need to do, because the whole stator assembly is missing on this side. The other thing I'll point out while Josh is working here is oil. So we got oil dripping from the oil pump while we were spinning the motor over by hand. And that leads me to think that the pump is functional, that it will push oil into the motor, that our oil injection's working. So that's also encouraging. Haven't seen other surprises. Exhaust still looks good, motor spinning, but I don't know what kind of compression we're dealing with at this point. So another thing I'll call out, when this cover was taken off, it wasn't seated well onto the back plate. And what I don't know, if I look at this here, this back plate, well, when I look at it from this angle, this definitely looks warped, to say the least. This may have seen some real heat. So this plate also may need something work, something done. This gasket is intact, but it's just, this has been beat. So we'll end up getting a tool for pulling this to be prepared. But I don't think I'm going to try and tackle this before I try and do a first start. You know what else is impressive is we haven't had any bolts snap off. We haven't had to do any heat. We haven't done any PB blaster.
I just jinxed us.
Yeah, I hope I didn't just jinx. Because this has come apart well. Yeah. I wonder what this rubber leftover grommet, there's this wing on this side of the chassis that isn't anywhere else that I don't know, with this partial rubber grommet, to see what that is. Yep, so I remain optimistic. So working through here, the caliper sits into a kind of a socket here, so there's no way to get the caliper off without the rotor coming off. This rotor looks like it just sits on spline. Looks to me like it would be a floating rotor. But this floating rotor is really affixed to things right now. So we're gonna hit with some PB blaster, set up with the puller here, and see if we can break this free. We ought to hit this guy while we're at it, because he's gonna be the next thing we're trying to break free. He should just slide on that shaft. Yeah.
There's no...
Yeah, this should slip right out to be able to go from there to there to there. So we're probably bound up in there. My hope is that the rotor will come off. We'll be able to take this guy off, take this guy out, and then we'll have a way to work with him with some heat or something. Okay. All right. So now that we've been able to pop the rotor off, we can start to disassemble the caliper, get a view down in there. I'm going to take this lever off so I can work on this. And that looks to me like 12. You got what do you think? Yeah?
7/16.
7/16.
Everything's
yay.
universal. Or
This guy. I got to realize as Josh and I were finishing up working the other evening that I didn't film any kind of outro. We just kind of worked until the batteries died and it got dark and it was time for dinner. So kind of wanted to catch up where we are. But it is whipping wind outside today, so we're in the shed for this one. Okay, so kind of hitting a pause point here, and want to catch you up a little bit as we wrap up this video. Struggled with the shift indicator foil. This was all seized up, and Josh unscrewed the cap here, just you know, lefty loosey, took it off, stacked washers on the threads behind here, put a nut on, and as he tightened it, was able to crank it out. With that, I came by after the fact and whacked it with a mallet a few times with some PB blaster, and we're loosened up. So we never did get it off the splines here, but we're not going to need to. We can now shift up and down. Now, interestingly, the other unit that's on the trailer, as it sits, I can get this transmission all the way up and in. This one is sticking in both directions, so that could indicate something unknown yet. I did get my hands on a harmonic flywheel puller, so if we want to pull this, we can get this out. I'm quite curious as we go further in what it's going to take to put a starter in, because the mounting bolts are on the other side, and that just looks nasty. The nuts and bolts that came off, I dumped them into the tumbler. So you remember seeing these kind of laid out across the counter there, how rusty they were. And this is just a walnut media, dry. And I am liking this process more than the other processes because the threads don't get all gunked up. And when I've done green media, I've used this stuff here. I've mixed this with some simple green. It creates a paste that is really a pain to get out of the threads. So each of these, I will end up running them through a thread cleaner, tap and die set, and just spin them through. But there's going to be a lot less work here. And some of the stuff is just junk. I just tossed it in just to see how much this tumbler could take off. But we have got the rust off. Some of these I may need to fabricate something different to hold on to the, this is attaching the mud flaps to the wheel wells. But overall, happy with this. This hardware is all usable. Here's the media. And you see down in here, I have the rotors from the blaster for the YF-Z450 front end conversion going through here. These were, you see still there's a little bit of blue paint in here. These had paint all over them, and I'm trying to clean them up when I get back into the blaster project. So that's what that is, but that's what I threw all that media in. And these nuts and bolts, these were only running 5 and 6 hours. Often I'll put things through for up to 24 hours. Behind me, this is the blaster hardware, and you see when it's gone through 24 hours, this stuff really looks pretty good. Now, in full disclosure, a lot of these I've also hit on the buffing wheel. They've been touched up with the buffing wheel here, either with, fine touch up, but most of those bolts, I'll just hit them here on the red. These also I put through the tumbler just to see, again, that in just that couple of hours, take some of the rust right off. I'll end up washing this, but really kind of brings it back if I want to hit this with a new coat of paint. The other thing I want to talk about is the car, but let me bring it inside. It's windy out here. Let's talk about the carburetor. You saw just how gunked up this was. This has been through the ultrasonic there, set up, high temperature, all the way up between 70 and 80 Celsius on here. I've had 4 cycles at 20 minutes. And it took that, along with brushes, to get all of that corrosion cleaned out of there, that bad gunked up fuel. So I bought a rebuild kit, and I have used a number of these kits from Freedom County. Plenty on the blaster. I've had really good luck with them. This one caught me up a little bit. And this one, you look at the description here for Trailblazer, Trail Boss 250, Trail Boss 2x4 and 4x4. It doesn't specify the year. So this was meant to be a generic. One thing I immediately noticed on here, the main jet that came with that I put in is a 145, and the manual OEM calls for a 155. And this is some of the other pieces that we're discarding that have now been replaced that still had that corrosion. So I've got a new needle to put in. This rubber gasket would go under this cap here. This drain cap is still all seized in there, and I'm leaving it. The other part, I mean, look at it. That was your pilot jet. That's tough. Here's the jet that came out of it. You can see looking right down the tip there. Pretty plugged up. This can still be cleaned up. I can't see a marking on it at this point to understand what size this actually is, or if somebody else had changed it out. So I'm starting over here. So we've got a rebuilt OEM carb at this point. You can see some of the discoloration, just how long this bottom bowl in here was really what went through the ultrasonic 4 times. So it darkened it up a little bit. But overall, I'm happy with this. I will probably still pull this off, chuck it in the tumbler for a little bit, and that'll clean it right up. Recognizing this video is starting to run a little long, this is a bolt I just pulled out from that tumbler from the Polaris, and I'm going to go touch it up on the wheel here just to show you a bit of a before and after. I don't plan to restore all these bolts, just clean them up and probably seal them. But there's your before. That there, I don't think I was even working 60 seconds on this bolt. And this could be improved upon. Yeah, so that's it. Next time, we're going to start cracking into the other unit still on the trailer there, kind of taking stock of some of the parts that are missing. Discovered a few things. There's an air snorkel that comes off of the belt drive system as part of the cooling system. That air snorkel system is missing from both. So we don't need that for a first start, but if we don't put that on, you're just going to pull dirt, water, mud right down in there. So there's a few more pieces to hunt, but we're getting closer. So follow along. I think this one's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of learning. There's a lot of rust on here to work through, but I do think we can get this thing going. And if we don't get it going, I'll just blame Josh. So we're covered there.